Being President of the United States is the most powerful job in the world. These men had nuclear codes, armies, and the weight of history on their shoulders. But sometimes, they did things so dumb, so reckless, or so bizarre, it makes you wonder how the country even survived. Tonight, we're counting down 13 of the dumbest things US presidents have ever done. And trust me, some of these are so unbelievable, they sound like urban legends. But they really happened. 1. Andrew Jackson's giant cheese party. Imagine walking into the White House and the entire place smells like cheddar. In 1837, President Andrew Jackson hosted a public reception where he unveiled a massive, 1,400-pound wheel of cheese. He told the public, "Eat as much as you want." Thousands of guests swarmed in, clawing and shoving to grab chunks. They smeared cheese on walls, carpets, and curtains. When it was over, the White House smelled like spoiled dairy for months. It was supposed to be a populist gesture. Instead, it turned the people's house into the world's largest founder disaster. 2. Jimmy Carter attacked by a rabbit. Presidents face danger from assassins, terrorists, even nuclear war. But Jimmy Carter? He faced a rabbit. In 1979, Carter was fishing in Georgia when a swamp rabbit swam toward his boat. The president panicked, grabbed a paddle, and splashed water to scare it away. The press nicknamed it the Tequila Rabbit Incident. The story made Carter look weak and ridiculous, and newspapers mocked him endlessly. So yes, America once had a president who was publicly humiliated by a bunny. 3. Richard Nixon's drunken nuclear order. In 1969, during the height of the Cold War, Richard Nixon got drunk. That wasn't unusual. But this time, he ordered a nuclear strike on North Korea after they shot down a US spy plane. Luckily, his advisors stalled until Nixon sobered up, and the strike was never carried out. Historians later revealed this wasn't the only time Nixon gave reckless nuclear orders while intoxicated. His aides even told military officials, if the president calls at night, wait until morning. The dumbest thing wasn't just Nixon's drinking. It was that the fate of the world sometimes hung on whether he passed out before making a phone call. 4. Bill Clinton and I did not have relations. In 1998, President Bill Clinton stood before the American people and said one of the most infamous lies in history. "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." But he did. And when the truth came out, Clinton wasn't just caught in a personal scandal, he was impeached for perjury and obstruction of justice. The dumbest part? Clinton could have admitted the affair and likely survived politically. But instead, he doubled down on a lie that nearly destroyed his presidency. 5. Ronald Reagan and the astrologer. Ronald Reagan was known as the great communicator. But behind the scenes, his wife Nancy relied heavily on astrology. After Reagan survived an assassination attempt in 1981, Nancy hired an astrologer to help plan the president's schedule. For years, the White House calendar was influenced by star charts and horoscopes. World leaders had no idea that their meetings, summits, and negotiations were being timed based on Saturn's position. The dumbest thing? Reagan wasn't fully aware how much astrology shaped his presidency. The stars were guiding America's nuclear decisions. 6. George H.W. Bush throws up in Japan. In 1992, President George H.W. Bush attended a state dinner in Japan. Cameras rolled as he suddenly turned pale, leaned over, and vomited in the lap of Japan's Prime Minister. Secret Service rushed in, Bush fainted, and the incident was broadcast worldwide. In Japan, the word bushusuru briefly entered slang, a meaning to do a bush, or throw up in public. It wasn't his fault, he was sick. But for a sitting president, it was one of the most humiliating moments ever caught on tape. 7. Ulysses S. Grant's speeding ticket. Ulysses S. Grant was a Civil War hero, known for leading Union forces to victory. But as president, he loved racing horses through Washington, D.C. streets. One day, police stopped him for speeding. When they realized who he was, they apologized. But Grant insisted no one was above the law, and let himself be arrested. It sounds noble, except he was a repeat offender. He had been warned multiple times, but he kept racing carriages through crowded streets. The President of the United States had to pay bail for reckless horse driving. 8. Gerald Ford's clumsy falls. Gerald Ford will forever be remembered for one thing: falling. In 1975, while leaving Air Force One in Austria, Ford slipped on the stairs and tumbled. Cameras caught it, and the press labeled him clumsy. Over the years, every trip, stumble, and bump became news. Comedians like Chevy Chase built entire careers mocking Ford's supposed clumsiness. The dumbest part? Ford was actually athletic. He was a college football star. But one slip turned into a lasting joke that overshadowed his presidency. 9. John Quincy Adams skinny dipping in the Potomac. In the early 1800s, John Quincy Adams had a strange habit. At dawn, he would walk to the Potomac River, strip naked, and swim. One morning, a female reporter waited on the riverbank. She stole his clothes and refused to give them back until he granted her an interview. The President of the United States had to negotiate, stark naked, just to get his pants back. It worked. She got her story. And Adams got a reputation as America's first skinny-dipping president. 10. Lyndon B. Johnson and the Johnson treatment. Lyndon Johnson was a political powerhouse, famous for intimidating senators by leaning over them, shouting, and even following them into the bathroom. But his dumbest habit? Constantly flashing his private parts. Johnson nicknamed it Jumbo, and he loved humiliating staffers by pulling it out mid-conversation. He even once urinated on a Secret Service agent's shoe just to prove he could. The dumbest thing wasn't just the act, it was that this behavior was normalized in the Oval Office. 11. Calvin Coolidge and the Raccoon Dinner. In 1926, President Calvin Coolidge was sent a live raccoon intended to be cooked for Thanksgiving. Instead of eating it, Coolidge adopted it as a pet, named it Rebecca, and let it wander around the White House. Rebecca became infamous for climbing curtains, scratching furniture, and terrorizing staff. Coolidge's love for exotic pets didn't stop there. He also had a bobcat, donkeys, and even a wallaby. The White House looked less like a presidential mansion and more like a chaotic zoo. 12. Franklin Pierce running over a woman. In 1853, Franklin Pierce, widely considered one of America's worst presidents, accidentally ran over an elderly woman while driving his horse-drawn carriage. Pierce was arrested for manslaughter. The charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence, but the scandal destroyed his reputation even further. Already unpopular, Pierce became a laughingstock. The dumbest thing wasn't the accident itself, it was how he handled it. Instead of showing remorse, Pierce brushed it off, deepening the public's hatred for him. 13. Donald Trump's Sharpie Hurricane Map. In 2019, President Donald Trump held a briefing on Hurricane Dorian. He showed reporters a weather map of the storm's path. But sharp-eyed viewers noticed something odd. The map had been altered with a Sharpie to make it look like the storm might hit Alabama. When questioned, Trump doubled down, insisting he was right, despite the National Weather Service contradicting him. The incident became known as Sharpiegate, one of the dumbest presidential moments in modern history. Conclusion. And there it is. 13 of the dumbest things US presidents have ever done. From Andrew Jackson's cheese disaster to Jimmy Carter's rabbit attack, from Nixon's drunken nuclear threats to Trump's Sharpie storm, these stories prove one thing. Presidents may be powerful, but they're still human. And sometimes, hilariously dumb.